Please tell us about yourself. What are your interests and hobbies?
My name is claris. I am certified to teach biology in the middle and higher grade. I believe in using data from summative and formative assessment and surveys from students to be able to plan differentiated instructions. I love doing I love doing first aid and in assisting people when they are injured, preparing them before medical personnel attends the injury scene or the accident scene. So I also love singing. So at times I use my lessons to produce songs to enable the students understand better.
Are you involved in extracurricular activities that you could coach or supervise?
Yes, I'm engaged in first aid. I'm coordinating a first aid club in my school, and so I prepare students to attend to injured cases in school, like during clubbing activities or during a football game. They can attend to students that are people around them that are injured. So that they examine people that are injured before a health personnel attends the scene of the accident.
Why did you decide to become a teacher for the subject for which you are applying?
My passion for the subject came when I grew up to learn about the Bible story, talking about the origin of life and the world. Then in my middle and old and in my middle age of school, when I was going to school, I studied biology to see how they were explaining the development of some organisms or living things in the world. And so I examined that these biblical explanations were different from biological explanations. So I decided to dig deep into knowing that I am a critical thinker. I need to go more into scientific research to be able to know, make me understand more better about these biological explanations. Notwithstanding my, I still hold strong on my Christian values.
Are you currently employed as a teacher?
Yes, I currently teach biology in my middle and higher grades in school.
How many hours per day do you teach and how many days per week?
I teach 8 hours per day and 5 days a week. Like in most cases, when I discover that my students have not understood a particular concept, I add I have two additional time, 2 more hours to add to the 8 hours I had to teach them. So in those 2 hours, I help them in reteaching the concepts that they did not understand. I help them in their homework, most of their homework, and then again I can use these 2 hours to prepare my lesson for the next day by using the data I collected for that lesson. And then again, I can even contact their parents to tell the students some of the beautiful things, to tell the parents most of the beautiful things the students did while in school, and some positive rewards that I behaviors that I or issues that the students came out with. So I contact the parents to make them know most of these things that their children or their children did in school.
Describe your teaching experience. What subject have you taught and at what grade level?
I have taught biology for 10 years, and it is a very exciting experience because my students love me so much, and I believe Students only learn from those that they like. Students don't learn from people they don't like. So I always make my lessons engaging. They are actively involved. So my lessons, or in this my 10 years of teaching, I've really loved and enjoyed it.
Describe other work experiences you have had besides teaching.
Yes, as like I said, I am a first aider. I do first aid in cases where I meet minor injuries in school. I tend to attend to those cases, and then that is why I really love it best, doing first aid in my school.
Have you ever worked in the United States? If so, where,
Thank,
when, and why?
thank you. I've never been to the United States.
What do you hope to be doing professionally 5 years from now?
I'll still be teaching biology because I have passion for the subject, and I'll go further to do other certification courses as far as biology is concerned, and do more of research as far as studying and doing the subject.
If I were to talk to several of your colleagues, how would they describe your personality?
My colleagues will say I am a consistent teacher. I do my work consistently, and that I always love to be around my students, and that these students love to be around me too, because my I don't always have behavior problems or issues with my students because my lessons are always engaging. You never come to my class and see that there are disrupting my class, because my classroom is always engaging.
What will your students say about you?
Thank you so much. My students will say I am fair and an objective teacher, that I believe that I believe in them. I believe in what they do, and I love them so much. So,
How,
and my students love me too. So, when I build a good relationship with my students, we will produce better results.
how do you prepare to teach your lessons?
Before I teach my lessons, I examine data collected from previous knowledge to be able to plan for a differentiated instruction. And by so doing, I prepare activities like videos, I do online interactive activities to prepare the students. I even use data that I collected from my Beringer, the previous lessons, and then now with all this, I come out with a Kahoot game, a game on a computer platform like a Kahoot game, or a game on quizzes that will help build the students' understanding, will help in my assessment for the next instruction.
What will your lesson plans include?
Okay, my lesson plan will include, first of all, a Beringer. And this Beringer is an activity that will make the students engage immediately they step into the classroom. And another activity that I will include is an activity that will make the students actively involved, like a hand-on activity that will make the students involved, or I will group the students. I will group the students to be able to work in groups. And in the course of grouping the students, if I discover that there are some students that did not understand a particular concept, I can go personally to that student. I talk with the student one on one to enable that student understand a particular concept. Or other students might be working on the computer practicing what they have learned for that lesson. And then again, what I include is a, to conclude, I include an activity like a Kahoot game or a game on quizzes, or I call up a student up to summarize all what we have taught for that day.
Think about a class that you have taught recently. Talk about two of the teaching strategies or methods that you used.
Okay, thank you. I taught insect metamorphosis in grade 9. So what I did was I brought in the adult, the larva, the pupa, the nymph of the housefly, the grasshopper, and the honeybee. So what I did was to group these students. I put the students in group, and then I brought in the housefly and the maggot. I then asked the students, can you identify these two organisms or two insects? They said no, because they did not understand that the maggot came from the housefly. And so I went on to explain or to tell them that it is from the housefly of that the maggot came from. Then I took another specimen like the nymph and the grasshopper. So I placed them, asked them to observe these two insects in terms of structures. So they observed these two insects, and they were able to come out with differences in their structures and some few similarities. Then I brought the larva and the honeybee, and they too were able to identify. So from there now I came up with this, that one of the characteristics of insects is that they change their forms, and this phenomenon of changing forms is what we call metamorphosis. And then I asked a student again to go up, stand and read from the textbook the definition of metamorphosis. As the student was reading the definition of metamorphosis, other students were filling in their notebooks. And then again I asked them to use their textbooks to come out with differences between complete and incomplete metamorphosis, and so they read it still aloud. Then now, for their homework, I asked them to use either their phones to come out with 10 organisms that undergo complete metamorphosis and 10 organisms that undergo incomplete metamorphosis.
What method do you use to grade or evaluate your students' progress?
I use summative and formative ways of evaluating my students. I first of all talk of the bell ringer, that when I get into my class, the first thing I do is to use my bell ringer. From my bell ringer, I can know whether I can try to know if my students understand a particular concept I taught or not. And then from that bell ringer, I can use data from the bell ringer to assess my students. Again, I can use at the end of the lesson, I can use quick assessment. I can give them like 3 multiple choice questions or 5 multiple choice questions. From there, I will try to know if my students actually understood the concept or not. And then through their Kahoot games, I can use their Kahoot games and the games on quizzes to be able to assess these students. So data that I collect from all this will help me assess my students and evaluate them better.
If you use technology in your teaching, describe how you use it. Specifically, discuss your experience using a smartboard and ways that you incorporate it into your lessons.
Thank you so much. What I mostly use in teaching is I use my laptop to project on the wall. That will help the students. I can use my laptop by playing a video game for the students to watch. I can still bring a chart that I've drawn some specimens or organism, like an activity that will help the student to observe. But what they mostly use is, the world is evolved, they mostly use their smartphones. I also create contacts like a computer platform. I create WhatsApp groups in which I use in communicating with these students, like I give them homework using this WhatsApp group.
If you have students who are noisy and non-attentive, share with us 2 ways you get them to be quiet and concentrate.
Thank you. This is a classroom management problem. Before I start, I always bring in my classroom expectations or my routine. I teach them to my students for better understanding. There are times that I even paste most of these expectations on the walls of the classrooms. Again, I create good relationship. I build good relationship with my students because I believe that students don't learn from people they don't like. So I build excellent relationship with my students and their parents. And then I also, and my lessons are always very engaging in the sense that all the students are always actively involved. Either they are working in groups or on the computer, or I'm helping one of the students that have not understood a particular concept. So all these really help them and keep them busy in class, so my class is never disrupted. But if I use all this and it doesn't work, I use the close proximity method. By working closer to a student while teaching, I talk and go closer to a student. I call the student by name to draw back the student's attention back to class. And if this does not still work, I take the student outside. I call up the student outside. I talk with the student one-on-one. When I discuss with the student one-on-one and the student does not still understand or is still not cooperating, I contact the parents. But I will always love to manage my classroom problems in class because I always want my students to be in the confine of the classroom. I don't want them to miss any lesson. So I would love my students to always be in class.
Describe the most difficult problem you have had to deal with as a teacher, and how did you solve this problem?
One of the difficult problems I have faced like a teacher is the fact that parents are not cooperating with with me, the teacher. There are times that I called a parent up that your student did not do a particular homework, and the student will tell me that it's my duty to do the child's homework. And by so doing, I help the student to make sure that before that student leaves school, I do his or her homework in school before he goes back home to meet his parents.
Perfect.